Welcome back to Outrage Science Bites. I'm David Beckmeyer, and this is day 28 of our 30-day challenge, continuing our deep dive into bridging our divides. We're closing in on the end of our challenge, and today we're turning our attention to one of the most practical questions: how do we get people together in the first place? In a world where civic gathering places like local shops, community centers, and even parks seem less prominent, how do we intentionally create spaces for connection? That's our question for today. What are some ways in our communities to get people together in person, given that we no longer have shared public spaces? To answer that, we're joined by Karissa Raskin from Listen First. As someone who works to facilitate real-world dialogue, Karissa has great insight into what works to bring diverse community members out and into the same room. Here's Karissa.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And what I always encourage people to think about, especially like bridging movement partners, is it's really hard to draw people to an event or activity that is outside of their norm. Like people are creatures of habit, and we're also incredibly busy. And new is often uncomfortable. So, how can we take advantage of the things and the spaces where people are already convening? And what do we know? People are still, in a lot of cases, going to houses of worship. So, really leaning into the faith sector and making sure that we are working in partnership um, with faith-based leaders. And whether you're working at it from an intra-faith perspective or inter-faith perspective, there's a lot to be done there around bridging, and that even breaks away from the red-blue binary we were talking about. That gets into a whole nother dimension. Colleges and schools, I mean, high schools, middle schools, elementary schools. I mean, these are spaces where we really could be tapping in more, working with educators who are seeding the brains of our youth. I mean, that is a huge space. And the administrators who are creating the contexts for those educators to be able to put seeds in the brain, like we need to be more engaged there. Um, and the workplace. I mean, people spend more time at their job, whether it's virtual or in person, than they do with their own families often. And so, how are we really working with business leaders to be able to help them recognize the benefit of bringing bridge building practices into the culture of their corporation, whether it's through professional development training, whether it's through some sort of, credentialing. I mean, HR and the culture shift internally makes a huge difference, but then you can also think of it from a service perspective. How is the company rewarding or encouraging their employees to do good work out in the community, learn who their customer base is, invest in a way that is beyond the, normal 9 to 5, provide the service after you punch the clock. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity that we have to take advantage of the spaces and places where people are gathering. And once you, again, start to build that bond and transform people's perception of what it means to be involved in one's community, one, they're going to innately learn about other opportunities while they're there or engaging in these other ways. But two, they're going to feel good about it. There's going to be some level of endorphins that make them say, this is something that I want to be involved with more so. And they're going to seek out those opportunities for bonding and bridging more than they had in the past. And so then, when you end up having a group of people who want to start a book club together and meet at the local library, or, I don't know how many people are still doing bowling leagues, but we could go back to Robert Putnam and, go bowling together. Or just, Saturday morning walks in the park. I mean, all of these things can be generated from the encouragement that comes from community leaders who are put in a place of recognizing the value of that bonding experience and bonding across differences and encouraging their membership, their audience to take part. And having worked in on a very local level, you will always have greater turnout if you are able to partner with the leaders in the community who already have that audience rather than trying to cultivate a new one yourself. People are just too busy.
Right. Yeah, it's like we don't have time for one more streaming service in our life. We don't have time
No,
for like, don't give
no,
me anything else. Um,
right. You got to
you
make
know,
dinner for the kids and drive them to basketball.
right. Um, and we know from a lot of research that the community aspect is so huge and it has so much, it's so impactful, yet we almost avoid it sometimes, like we're so focused on these national issues. And it goes even beyond what we might, call kind of just bridging movement sort of stuff. I mean, you see this in the radicalization space too. I've talked to many experts that study that community is how you sort of steer people away from those things, real life interactions and getting them involved and having belonging and this kind of stuff, right? So there's so
Mhm.
many positive aspects of that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That's all for today's episode of Outrage Science Bites. Stay curious, and until next time, I'm David Beckmeyer. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy these Science Bites episodes, you may enjoy the long-form Outrage Overload podcast at outrageoverload.net.